The Missing Children Incident. Chapter 5. Purple Shades of the Past. While on the meeting, Barney forced himself to focus on the common problem of the staff, to sound honest and trustful about not seeing the vandals, and not to think a second about being in the same room with his future victims. But the first thing he had to not to think about until the meeting was the most thrilling thought: having a common secret with the children. They became Skeins mate, which created a special connection between them, which will make fooling and luring them away much easier, and which will make his pleasure sweeter. When he was accidentally walking there, looking into Pirate Cove and saw them there, he thought it must be his imagination. He stood there, frozen, while he realized what he was looking at. The fact that the kids were ruining the property of the restaurant, his working place, was just secondary. The only thing that mattered was that no one was around. The blood frenzy had risen in his soul, so strong that he felt giddy for a second. A cold, moderate voice in his mind tried to convince him that it is a bad idea. He cannot control so many kids at once. They would be screaming and running away, and also anyone can appear there in any minute and would discover him. It wasn't easy, but he pushed the frenzy away, although it was so strong that it almost made his stomach hurt. He could hardly stand it, but he had to. It wasn't the best time and place to do anything violent. When the children noticed him, he had no idea how to react. He wasn't in that state of mind, but he immediately spotted that they are even more confused. So he dealt with the emergency and took the role of the rigid security guard fast. While he was talking to them, he could hide the hungry tones in his voice, but he still sounded so hard that he scared them a lot. Looking at their terrified faces made him so pleased that it started to endanger his good sense. Fortunately, the young Benny mentioned that they will be here on his big birthday party. That gave Barney such a good idea that it made him calm down. Being lenient to them, in any meaning, and gaining their trust warmed his heart. He started to make ideas how to make them his while he was driving home. Barney never thought himself as a bad guy. He was always friendly and polite to others, and never thought ill of anyone. He just simply didn't let them too close to himself to prevent them to see his true self. He was cloaked with friendliness and charm, and that he doesn't really care for others. Not a bit. Which even made him thinking killing 5 children on a birthday party is not an evil thing. He knew it was wrong because other people would be freaked out and angry knowing about it, but he didn't care because doing this was his personal need. He only needed to take care of not being caught. He didn't even think about the whole thing from the children's point of view. What does his little hobby mean for them? But in the same time he had no doubt what would the other people, including Scott, whom Barney think of as a friend, do with him if his secret wishes came to light. They don't even need to catch him in the act. It would be enough to take a peek into his mind. He knew long ago what is his obsession, which took the place in his mind where other men have thoughts about sex. But until he killed Patty, those lusts never ended with satisfaction. But it wasn't like that from the beginning. He had his first sexual experience when he was 17, on a party in one of his classmates' house. And it was more like a nightmare than an experience. A bouncy girl wanted to have sex with him for a while now, and they ended up on the bed of the host. But in the end, It was a total failure. Barney was a shy boy, and the girl's wild temper made him excited and worried in the same time. The girl's interest in him caused him to feel the heat, although he always thought about sex as a scary and quite ridiculous thing. So it started well, but when the real attraction was about to happen, Barney failed miserably. The girl was trying to do her best. She was very patient and lusty, but it became more and more awkward, so she gave up. But she took it as an offense and said harsh things to Barney, and later she told about him to her friends. A few years later, he got to know another girl who was younger than him and very slim. They got off together from another party with Barney's old car, and they continued what they had started earlier. Things got hot, so they stopped the car in an empty parking. Oh, those empty parkings! The girl was devoted and greedy, but the act failed again. Barney tried to do his best, but he tried it so desperately that the girl thought it was enough and she asked Barney to take her home. She wasn't laughing or mocking him, but she still made Barney angry. He grabbed her arm, rougher as he wanted, and she cried out loudly from the sudden pain. She tried to free her arm, but she couldn't. Barney realized how much stronger he is than the girl, and that nobody is around, and this made him turned on. He dragged her closer and dumped her, and then the girl kicked him really hard. Not right into his balls but very close to them. The boy let her go in his agony, and she jumped out of the car, naked, taking back her clothes while running. A few days later Barney visited her and begged for her pardon, and the girl, who was a warm-hearted person, forgave him, but nothing ever happened between them, of course. After that, Barney never got close to any women, and didn't really feel he needed them. He was reading dirty magazines, but he didn't really felt anything looking at the couples who were having sex in different positions, clothes and pairing. He also had a BDSM magazine. He thought it would be more interesting, but it was even worse. The lots of costumes, accessories and play seemed more hilarious than sexy for him. There was only one image that made him turn on. There were a big, older man on the photo and a short, slim girl who barely seemed 20 years old. She wore a tiny skirt and a shiny tiara, and looked into the camera with her innocent, pure eyes while sucking a lollipop. Sitting gingerly on the lap of the man, Barney found her costume ridiculous and the title, Daddy and His Naughty Little Girl, quite untasteful. But this image still seemed exciting for him. He took the image from the magazine and he planned to throw out the rest. But he didn't do it in the end. He took some more solid ones and hid it in a box under his bed. He still threw out the dirtier ones, along with his favorite picture. That was necessary since Barney lived in his parents' house and he didn't want his mother seeing something perverted while cleaning his room. Some simple porn magazine wouldn't stand out. It would be more abnormal if an adult man wouldn't have any, but things like the Daddy's Naughty Girl photo would look really perverted to them. But this way he could kept it safe and in a secret. Despite it became creased after a while and he started to get bored with it. And then one day he found something much better. While sitting in a waiting room at the doctor, he was turning over the pages of the magazines that were lying over there, and in one of them, There was an article about domestic violence. He wasn't really interested in the theme, but the picture which was attached caught his attention. There was a man on the illustration who grabbed a little girl by her arm and his other hand was swung to strike. Barney took a quick look around and saw that there was only an old guy in the waiting room who was totally dug into his newspaper, so he could take the magazine and hid it into his own bag. Later at home, when he was looking through the magazine more carefully, he found another image he liked. It was a photo of a young schoolgirl, with no violence, but he could easily image it if he wished so. After a little time, he had quite a collection of photos about kids. He had never found a really good one like the man who was beating his daughter, but at least he had a variety of images. They were totally innocent ones, until anyone who would find them would think about it. Why an adult man has those images in his possession? So Barney just hid them among his porn magazines. And one day disaster entered. Barney's older sister, Veronica, asked him if he could babysit her 6-year-old son. Everything went just well, but the little Jake was such a naughty little brat and nothing could hold his interest for too long. Barney was a very patient babysitter. He tried to entertain him, but Jake found it funnier if he just threw his toys around. As far as he could, Barney put him in his place, but then the little imp started to aim at him with his toy cars. He went at him and grabbed his tiny arm and gave him a good tug, and his stupid little head was just tilting forward and backwards. Jake went silent for a second, and then he started to squeal, and that was a mistake. Starting his pointless fight, he woke up Barney's violent instinct, who, instead of letting him go, grabbed him more tightly and twisted his arms. That made Jake to scream louder, but it was all in vain. He couldn't escape, only made Barney more excited. Meanwhile at the door the lock was moving, but they didn't hear it. Veronica just arrived at home, earlier than she was supposed to. She heard Jack screaming, painful and terrified, and she was really nervous. She thought he might get injured or something. She ran into the house, following the screams, and she wasn't ready for the hideous sight she saw when she entered the room. Her brother was sitting on the couch, squeezing Jack's body among his knees, and he twisted Jack's tiny arms so brutally that the boy's body was totally strained. Barney had a mean grin on his face while he was stroking himself through his pants. Veronica was so shocked that she was standing there as she was turning into stone. She dropped her bag and all her stuff fell to the ground. The noise made those two to notice her arrival. Jake stopped screaming for a second and then started it again, louder than before. Barney froze from fear, seeing his sister, and he released Jake immediately, who fell to the floor on his face. He dodged out of Veronica's way in a frantic pace when she was running to her son, who was crying much softer now with his mother close to him. She was comforting Jake, checking if he had any injuries. Then she turned to her brother with a wild look on her face. He was trapped in the corner of the room and cowered before her. Veronica attacked him with her fists while he was whimpering some kind of apologies. "Don't try to apologize, you dirty bastard!" cried Veronica with her eyes burning with rage. She grabbed a toy locomotive and struck Barney's head with it, but she could only reach his arms and torso. "I call you to my house, and you hurt my son. If I come back later, Then you'd also rape him? Exclamation mark. No, no, nothing like that. Shut up, screamed Veronica. I won't listen to your lies, you filthy pervert. Get the hell out of my house. I didn't mean to. I don't care what you are saying. You disgust me. Veronica snarled and pushed him away while successfully hitting him on the head with the locomotive. Barney fled towards the door, covering his bleeding forehead, while his sister was crying like a wounded lioness behind him. If I ever see you again approaching my son, I will call the police, and Mom will be informed of this. I promise you. That was proved to be true when he went home. His mother was standing in the front door, with tear-worn eyes, her lips pressed tightly from anger and sadness. This is how I raised you? She went into tears again. What kind of beast can do this? Molesting a little boy. Molesting my grandson. Grab your stuff and get away from here. Barney tried to mutter some apologies, to show some regret, but his mother didn't listen to him. I don't care for you sick excuses. I don't want. This is how I raised you? She went into tears again. What kind of beast can do this? Molesting a little boy. Molesting my grandson. Grab your stuff and get away from here. Barney tried to mutter some apologies, to show some regret, but his mother didn't listen to him. I don't care for your sick excuses. I don't want to see again near my grandson. I don't want to see you ever again. You will move today. Meanwhile, Barney's father also appeared in the hall. His face was worn and stressed, and he raised his fist like he wanted to hit his son. Barney turned his face away with shame and fear, but his father didn't hit him, just waved and let out a bitter sigh. All those years of having a loving family, and you ended up being some dirty bastard who hurts children? I have no son anymore. This resigned tone in his voice made Barney cry, but before he could beg for his father's forgiveness, he turned his back on him and walked to his room. He didn't come out as long as Barney was in the house. Hearing those harsh words made Barney's mother to cry sadder, but her heart didn't soften. Barney packed away his stuff, also the box with the magazines, in a very upset mood, while his mother was standing in the door and cursed him. After his exile he was living in a sublet, but it was too close to his parents' house, so he moved to the other side of the state. And no matter how ashamed he was first, not even being disinherited could make him forget how good it felt to hurt that little brat. Although he had no idea what could happen if Veronica didn't pop in earlier. It's obvious that he wouldn't rape that kid. It's such a disgusting thought. But how long would he went on abusing him? Could he even stop? The whole thing felt just too good to force himself to stop. And if Veronica would have come home to see her son being crippled or dead in her brother's hands, then she wouldn't hit him with a toy, but with a butcher's blade. He tried not to think too much about this. The worst by his meaning, had already happened. His family uncovered him and exiled him. It's better to not approach them again, or they will tell it to others and those others will also humiliate him, or worse. Remembering the humiliation from his family kept him close from any evil deeds until he saw Patty. He saw his family the last time on his mother's funeral, which he was aware of as a coincidence, and he thought he should go there. She was still his mother, and he loved her. He stood further than the morning crowd, but the little Jake saw him and pointed at him with a terrified look on his face. When Veronica's wild stare reached him, Barney stepped off immediately. He didn't hear a word about them in the last few years, but he didn't care. He hated that brat Jake, and he had some wicked fantasies about what could happen that day when he was alone with the kid. But after a while, not even this nor his collection of photos didn't satisfy him enough. Barney was walking around schools and playing grounds, which wasn't really secure since the mothers with children see every lone man as a drooling pedophile. So he was very careful. He looked nice and smiled at everyone with a friendly smile while observing the kids and choosing some who he found interesting to have some time with. But he had never done anything with them, only in his mind, until that happening in the parking of Fazbear's which changed everything, and Barney found his golden opportunity to gratify his passion. That birthday party will be a real fun for him too, and it will surprise the kids in a way they never expected.